Welcome to Masters of Product Management, powered by Sequent Learning Networks, a show that provides extraordinary insights for product managers who want to go faster and farther in their product management careers.
Hello, this is JJ Rory, Vice President at Sequent Learning Networks. In our Masters of Product Management podcast, we tap into the experiences of people who work in and around product management to help you learn and grow in your product management career. When we think of the role of product manager, we mostly think of building products for external customers, those people or businesses or governments that buy our product. But there are many product managers who build products for internal customers, other employees of their organization. It's often said that an organization's most important asset is its people. So these product managers who build products to attract better talent, to retain great people, and to help those people do their job more efficiently and effectively are of critical importance to the organization. In today's conversation, we're going to explore the connection of the human resources and product management functions and talk about some of the similarities and differences in building products for internal customers versus external customers. My guest today has a perfect background for this conversation and is here to share her expertise. Hannah Bertiger is a product manager at Walmart, where she works cross-functionally to build internal tools for the company's workforce of over 2 million associates. She has spearheaded initiatives ranging from a design and brand center for communications teams to onboarding guides for new employees. Her customer and employee-centric approach to product management is informed by her background in human resources and public health. She holds a Master's of Public Health Nutrition from New York University. Hannah, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
So I introduced you and gave a short bio, but do you want to share a bit more of your story and your background?
Yeah, I'd love to. So I think it makes sense a little bit to talk about my life kind of reversing all the way back to undergraduate. I've always had a passion for helping people. And as I was culminating my college career, I was really thinking about what I wanted to do next. My mom really wanted me to become a doctor, and I quickly realized as I went to college that those science classes weren't for me, and I was trying to figure out what the best path for me was. After doing tons of research and working in different research settings, I didn't really love the idea of continuing into academia and doing a PhD, but I always had a love for health and wellness, which led me to my graduate degree at NYU, where I received a master's in public health. As I was getting my master's degree, I started working in various tech startups as I moved to the city with my boyfriend at the time and had a lot of exposure into the startup scene. And I was really intrigued by how different workforces were thinking about employee experiences and technology. After graduating, I joined the HR and benefits team at Blue Apron, where I was really passionate about building employee wellness programs and digital experiences for the thousands of employees at Blue Apron, whether it was those in corporate or those packaging the boxes at the warehouses. But I still had a sense of feeling there where I really wanted to create even more programs at a larger scale, which led me to my next position where I worked as a wellness consultant at an insurance brokerage, creating large-scale employee wellness programs for different heads of HR at various technology companies within Manhattan. As I was creating these programs, I still felt a gap that I wasn't able to fully see my programs from start to end and really get feedback from employees about how they were performing. I ended up meeting my manager at a conference for HR where I heard him speak about this idea of product management principles in HR. And I thought, that's it. I want to do that. So I came over to Walmart focusing on product development, specifically for creating internal tools and employee programs within Walmart. How we approach employee experience at Walmart, or better said, our associate experience, is really how we put our associates at the center and create digital experiences for them to have the best work life, whether that's well-being or through technology. So I've kind of taken all my experiences of wellness programming, benefits, HR, public health, and now technology, and culminated that into my most recent position as a product manager at Walmart, where I'm focusing on building an internal support chat tool for our store associates to help them find pertinent information they need for their day-to-day so they don't have to call our support lines and they're able to get answers faster.
So it's such a fascinating background. So I want to explore a little bit the move from HR or human resources to product management. I mean, I love that you're basically human resources, technology, product, all of these really important functions within an organization kind of rolled up into one, which is really cool. Let's talk a little bit about human resources. So again, I'm sure everyone understands what human resources is, but it's talent management, it's the employee relations, it's recruiting, it's retention, it's kind of managing that critical asset that every organization has, and that's its people. And Walmart specifically has amazing people, and 2 million of them, as we said in the intro. So talk to me a little bit about that move from human resources to product management, and maybe specifically, what are some of the skills and attributes that you think translate from one function to another?
Yeah. So I think that people may not realize that HR teams utilize a great deal of technology to help improve your employee processes. So is it the technology you're using to enroll in your benefits? Is it the technology that recruiters are using? How do you apply to a job online? What does your careers page look like? How are you giving employees information about all their benefits or the additional resources you're providing them? So HR itself is a really huge world and a great marketplace for different technologies and solutions. But a lot of them are really antiquated and don't really integrate into a holistic system. And that's where I really found an issue and started thinking about, well, how can I apply these thought processes that, typical customer facing teams would use? So for example, something I did when I used to work in benefits was you can send out just any email to your employees, but how do you track if your employees are reading the emails? Do they open it? Do they click on things? How do you know how they're engaging? Who can you target to resend the emails to? Especially for something when you're thinking through annual enrollment, it's imperative that you get people to enroll in their benefits and they're not calling or emailing you back saying, hey, I didn't get that information. So one of the things I used to do and kind of putting on that like product marketing cap was I was like, okay, let's implement MailChimp, which was a total novel idea in HR. But I explained to the team, well, we can track who's opening our emails. We can see what they're clicking on. And then we can target the people who didn't open them and keep sending them different emails and test out different headlines to see what captures an employee's attention so they start reading our information about our benefits and they're not coming back to us and saying, hey, you didn't tell me about this. So it's kind of where I started taking some of those principles from HR and moving into product. I happen to be incredibly lucky that there's this amazing team called People Experience at Walmart, which was absorbed through the Jet.com team. And they were really innovative and forward thinking about how they could create really holistic experiences for employees that apply these agile principles. So they apply something that they call the associate experience, and it's this overall life cycle. So how do you think about a person's role at a company? What's their experience when they're searching for a job for your company? So what does your career site look like? Are they able to filter easily for a job in their location or the sector that they're looking for? And is it the right job that's populating in the search results? Or do you have really cool and exciting information about your company on the careers page that makes an employee want to apply there? So are you advertising your benefits or their fun perks? Do you have pictures with employees of dogs in the office and all the fun things that you see a lot of startups start to do? From there, you can then think about your recruitment process. So many people apply to jobs and their resume goes into that black hole. And it's such a frustrating experience for a candidate, but a recruiter can also have a frustrating experience based on how they're allowed to interact with a candidate. So how can you bridge that gap with technology or even just really seamless processes? Something I was incredibly impressed by when I first applied to my job at Walmart was that after I sent in my application, I got a really sweet email saying, hey, we got your application. We'll let you know in a few days, but here's some fun things to read about our team. And, it gave a few links to some of the tech articles they had on different Medium blogs. And it was so simple, but I thought it was so clever as a way to keep engaging a candidate. So after you apply to a job, what's the interview process look like? Are you really warm to a candidate? And now there might not be technology for that whole interview process. Of course, now we can think about interviewing through Zoom, but how do you make it really comfortable for a candidate? Do you send them a survey before they come in and find out their favorite snack or beverage and have that waiting in the interview room for them? Do you give them the schedule of who they're interviewing with before they come in? There's so many different things that can make an interview go wrong. And one of those being is a person's anxiety during an interview. They're already super nervous. They really want the job. They're really excited. So how do you mitigate those anxieties? After a person interviews, we started to think about how do you onboard a person? Onboarding is so challenging for many organizations. It takes about 90 days for a new hire to fully integrate with a company, and 90 days is a really long time to lose on productivity. So how do you think about creating a really strong onboarding experience that allows a new hire to actually hit the ground running and learn about the company culture and mission, as well as give them all the tools and resources they need in order to be successful in their new career? And then the last two pieces that the people experience team thinks about, and this goes also for other internal teams at Walmart, is how do you think about constantly engaging your employees, whether it's through work or learning opportunities or employee resource groups? And then lastly, the piece is about retirement. So this kind of piece may not be applicable at all organizations since employees' lifetime is typically around 24 months, just with averaging of how retention rates look now in today's workforce. But if an employee is staying long-term at a company, when they do decide to retire, what does that look like? Do you still keep them engaged with company information? How do you make sure they still have access to all that information about retirement? So it was through this lens that I was really amazed that you could see the technology needs and the experiences and the application of agile principles into this entire life cycle that allows you to create so many internal tools to really elevate that people experience and move away from that typical definition of HR, which people tend to associate with kind of HR being the police of the company or just trying to save the company's name.
That's so interesting. And you know what I keep thinking or kept thinking as you were talking was that you are, as a product manager for internal products, if you will. And I want to touch on this a little bit more in a moment, but your entire job is basically to ensure that your customers stay with you. Right? I mean, your employees are your customers in your case. And we do the same thing when we're selling and building external products or products for external customers. And that customer empathy is so important, regardless of who that customer is. So thanks for walking through that. I think that helps us all get an understanding of the importance of understanding who your customers are and really what their needs are, because you mentioned some of those important products and experiences that you build. So before we talk about internal products, which I want to do because I think that's a fascinating part of your role. Do you have any key characteristics of a product manager that you think can be applied to other roles, or conversely that, somebody who's listening who may be in a human resources role or some other role right now who has aspirations to move into a product manager role? Do you have some ideas of what characteristics can be brought to a product manager role?
Yeah. And this is one I constantly reinforce in our team when we're thinking about different product decisions is, how can you have sympathy for your user, your customer, or the employee using your product? What are their pain points? How do you get inside their head? What's really bothering them? And how can our product provide that solution? And I think any good product manager has this trait or characteristic. And I think anyone who can deeply empathize with the person can be successful as a product manager. If you don't understand the problems at hand or what your user might be going through, it's really hard to create a solution and think creatively about how to make something that's truly delightful and actually solves the problem. You can do as much research as you want, but if you don't really get at the core what the issue is, it makes it really hard. And I think because I came from that HR background within health and wellness and I've talked to so many employees as someone who worked in human resources, I deeply understand their problems and at the core understand just basic tenets of the information that they're looking for. And that helps me drive and fuel solutions within the products I'm creating to help solve those issues.
Let's talk a little bit about internal customers versus external customers. Do you find any challenges when you're building tools for, again, internal colleagues as opposed to external customers? Does your approach as a product manager change when building these solutions?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in short, yes and no. So, overall, we want to apply the same principles and tenets that any good product manager would if we were building something for a consumer, right? We're creating a specific app or a product that we're going to sell either, B2B or B2C, right? So you collect feedback, you talk to your users, you do user research, you go through design sprints, you work with your engineers, etc. But there are smaller caveats that you really have to think about when you're doing internal tools. So you have to think about the scale that you're building. So for example, Walmart's in a unique position with such a large base of employees that we're required to build our own internal tools because we have such specific needs at a grand scale. And we really have to think about how we market and get feedback on those products. And that's probably the biggest challenge with building an internal tool. So for example, at Walmart, we have various different communication channels and we have different kinds of employees. So we have our store associates who have different technologies and apps that they use to do their day-to-day job versus our corporate employees who use different technologies for their day-to-day job, as you can imagine. So how do we advertise to all these different kinds of employees, all these different kinds of personas, create personalized experiences, and also obtain feedback? So that's where it gets really challenging when you're building internal tools, and you have to really think outside of the box to obtain those different things. So we have various ways we obtain feedback through our different channels of communication. So obviously we'll have surveys like other product managers would do, or we'll do user studies and conduct user interviews, similar to how customer-facing product teams will obtain feedback. But sometimes it's a little bit harder to get those time slots in because our users are also employees who are working on other important initiatives. So how do we make them prioritize that? We need feedback on this product to help them do their job so they can continue to do their job and help our customer, which is kind of challenging, but we're starting to get people to understand these principles and why it's really important. We also have other various technologies that allow people to give us direct feedback, whether that's through NPS scores or kind of thumbs up, thumbs down, and collect data through the back end of our products. And we'll have different employee channels, whether it's, various communication channels where they'll give feedback or kind of upvote different ideas. And as a product manager working on internal tools, we'll look across the landscape of all those channels and aggregate those insights for different product ideas or things that we want to add into our sprints as we talk with our designers and engineers. So that's one piece of the feedback. The other piece that we really have to think about are our internal business partners and stakeholders. So just like any other product management team, on the customer facing side, you still have those business partners and stakeholders, but on internal tools, it's a little bit more different, and it's different because it's a little bit more political. So this is where, again, HR skills really come in on how do you learn to really manage those relationships and be a really good people person and anticipate other people's needs and use the data from the feedback that you're getting to support your thoughts or kind of show your business partners and stakeholders that, okay, we're going to do what you need. This is the data to support it. Or your idea is really great, but the data is saying this from our employee surveys. We think we should focus on this first because this is more important and we'll see ROI there. So those are kind of the two different areas that you'll see a little bit difference in product management when you're focusing on internal tools versus working on something customer facing.
Yeah, very interesting. And I love to hear some of the similarities, but the nuances, right? Again, I've worked with several product managers who build internal products, if you will, and sometimes they do have some of the same challenges. So it's good to hear you kind of explain some ways to get about that. So this has just been such a great discussion on the connection of human resources and product management, and also those nuances of building products for internal customers. Hannah Bertiger, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your wisdom and experience with us today.
Thank you. It was great.
And thank you for joining us on Masters of Product Management, powered by Sequent Learning Networks. I am JJ Rory, and I look forward to speaking with you on the next episode.
You've been listening to Masters of Product Management, powered by Sequent Learning Networks. If you'd like to take your career to the next level with additional tools, training, coaching, and books, be sure to visit Sequent Learning Networks at sequentlearning.com.